Okay, so something I wanted to do on this channel was book reviews. And I think before I do my first one, I'll give a little background on my reading. So, when I was a little kid, I did a lot of reading. It was really fun. And cool thing when I was a kid is my mom used to take my sister and I to the bookstore and we'd get to pick out a book. And so I got to read a lot of cool books. And I also got a lot of good books out of the library when I was in school and stuff. So I enjoyed reading as a kid. Then I went to college and I enjoyed reading the books. I picked some of the classes where I was interested in the topics and it was fun. But college was also a time when you're starting, well, people notice things at different times, but that was a time for me personally where I would notice people would talk a great game and sound really impressive, but then it was all just nonsense. They couldn't really do any of the things they said they could do. And so I was still reading a lot in college. There was a good library there, and I loved the fact that there was like this treasure of knowledge right there available to me. So I used to go in there a lot and read quite a bit. I remember reading The Origin of the Species, and I was like, holy cow, this book is like really long and tedious and boring. Like, it wasn't part of any of my classes. I didn't have to read it. I just, you know, Darwin was like controversial where I was at because I was like at a little conservative Christian college at the time, and like it made sense, and you understand how like he made a breakthrough and whatnot, but yeah, it was definitely really long and really boring. Maybe from a new perspective now I'd appreciate more, but I definitely haven't given it another try in the last 20 years. But yeah, anyway, in college I personally had like that realization that kind of like talk is cheap. People just can say whatever they want. They can make stuff up. They just can say words, and it doesn't really have to come from a place of reality or experience or ability. And so then when I was in my early 20s, I was kind of a jerk and I used to test people a lot. They'd say they were strong, so I would challenge them to some kind of strength thing and beat them, or they'd say they ran a 4-1-40 or something ridiculous like that. I'm like, oh really? And then I'd race them and beat them and be like, you realize I only ran a 4-6-40 and I kicked your butt, so it's kind of hard to believe you're being truthful. Yeah, and but people go through phases. I kind of calmed down and stopped doing that. But I think that experience of people misusing words and making stuff up with words and taking the truth value from words made it so that I didn't respect books as much as I used to, even though they were really fun and a great part of my childhood. So then, like, I kind of went without reading very much for a number of years. Like, every now and then someone would recommend a book and I'd read it and be fun, but it wasn't a big part of my life. And then I moved to Maui and I went to the library a lot then, but a lot of that was laziness. I didn't have a computer at the time, so I'd use the free computer at the library and then read some magazines and newspapers. But I only read a few books unless like it was a topic that really interested me. Like I did read every single book in the library system on Bruce Lee because I just thought he was awesome, and I read every book they had on Michael Jordan and Wilt Chamberlain and stuff. So I tried to read a lot of books on champions and people I looked up to, thinking maybe tiny bit of it would rub off on me. But for the most part, I didn't do very much reading aside from that. Like every now and then, someone I respected would recommend a book or something, and I would read it. But then when I started trying to make my own money, I mean, obviously I had no idea what I was doing, so I started ordering some things like the $100 startup or the 4-hour work week, things like that, trying to at least get some kind of direction. And I'm sure on YouTube you probably come across that Ty Lopez commercial where he's talking about his Lamborghini being fun to drive in the Hollywood Hills. Anyway, I did that, the 67 steps, and one of the valuable things I got from that is his book list, because the guy reads a lot. He reads like a book a day, and he's been doing it for years. And I liked his concept of reading books by people who've actually accomplished something and have some authority behind the words they say, because that's what kind of killed books for me, was that anyone could say anything and it doesn't really mean anything if they're just some person putting words down without anything to back them up. So, you want to learn about Kung Fu, read someone like Bruce Lee or another person of his caliber. You want to learn about like making money and study someone like Sam Walton who made lots and lots of money. Right? So yeah, I've been reading a lot since then, like more than a book a week. It depends on how big the books are and stuff. Like some books are really, really big and wordy, so I'll only read like one book that week, but then another week I might read 3 or 4 books because they're smaller. And so that's kind of where I'm coming from when I'm going to do these book reviews, and they may not be very thorough or good reviews like what you're used to. I might just say I got this 1 or 2 ideas out of this book, and this is what I liked about it, and this isn't what I didn't like, or whatever. So anyway, that's kind of something I plan on doing on this channel, as well as whatever else strikes my fancy. So I just thought I'd introduce that concept before I actually review any books.